Hey, and welcome to a conversation with Mr. Mike B. Good
Hey,
old Mr. Mike B., formerly of the Midnight Citizen, currently of Mike's Bonfire, future of something else with either Midnight Citizen, Mike, or Bonfire.
who knows? The branding is that for 15 years I did a podcast called the Midnight Citizen Show. And it was just a monologue show. Me talking a lot of times like in the studio kind of late at night, but other times also just walking around um, Birmingham, Alabama, and wherever I happen to be with a recorder. It's really, really fun for many years, but I stopped doing it last year so that I could focus on getting a new job.
Yeah.
And the last about a few years ago or so, I went on to Substack to host the podcast and perhaps do other things on there. So that's Mike's Bonfire. That's the whole idea of that, is that it's not the Midnight Citizen by itself. It's just other things like writing and all that. That was like the whole idea of that.
There's,
So
there's Mike's
yeah,
Bonfire right there. Look at that.
yeah. And the last post is my last episode that I did back in is that November? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, November.
November 23rd.
Yeah. So I had a plan to end it at episode 300, and I think that's the last time we talked, or around
Yeah,
that
it was
time.
just ahead of that. It was just ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah. And I thought I
it was.
hadn't
It was
talked to
a
Mike in a while.
yeah.
So.
I went on a promotional tour to promote the end of
Yeah,
the show, and very much like the finale of Seinfeld.
there you
Um,
go. Well, you
yeah,
went out on top with 300.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's
Sure.
great.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So you've basically been a free man for like almost 6 months now.
Well, it makes it sound like I got a divorce or uh,
Well, you're free from the grind of producing some content, I guess. I don't know.
no, it's not real. I mean, I did. It's like the math doesn't work out. I did 15 years and 300 episodes, which means that is basically like a hobby that you like learning the guitar, where you sort of get out the instrument and you play a lot for a short period of time and then you put it away and then like years later come back to it and 15 years go by and you can still like only play the opening bars of Stairway to Heaven. That's that's what I would call my podcast.
Oh
It's
no, it's way more than that. Come on.
no, I enjoy doing it. I mean, but yeah, but it was like it was for 15 years it just really did hang over me like all the time. Like whenever I would have an experience or I would go on a trip or I just had like a really funny story, like something that happened to me. I would the first thought that would come to me is like I have to do a podcast about this. I have to like get it out there, and it can't be in my brain forever. I have to share it with the world, and I have to create a whole monologue about it, and I have to like figure out the theme of it and how it ties into some philosophical issue or whatever. And it was that was awful. Like I mean, it was I mean that's what you do is like just I don't know like a, I don't know, for lack of a better word, creative entity.
Right.
You can't just keep it in your head. And it's not like it's a selfish or like a narcissistic thing or anything like that. It's not at all. It's just like you just cannot keep it in your head because you'll go crazy. And so all those years it's like I had these things that would happen to me and I'd felt like I would need to do a show about them. And that burden, it did feel like a burden. It did feel like a heavy thing where it's like I have this way that I can do it. I have this method that I could get this out of my head, but it's like I'd rather like watch a show right now, or I'd rather listen to somebody else's podcast, or I'd rather just like not do it. And so it was it does feel nice, like when I just ended the show, that I didn't do as they say. I don't know if they still say this or not, but they used to have this phase, pod fade.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Back when there were a lot more people just like podcasting has become so incredibly conglomeratized and
Yeah.
corporatized, and it's like we've talked about that several times before, so no need to like redrudge it, but it's people used to just do shows just like you're doing here, like I would do on my show, and then they would just stop doing it. And so that was always in my mind. It's like I did not want to be one of those people who pod faded, because for years, podcasting meant so much to me. Not just because I was doing it myself, but because I knew all these other people out there like you and like Frank Nora and like Chad Bowers, who were doing their own shows just like me. And so it did feel like, I don't want to sound hokey, but it did feel like a community that I had accidentally fallen into. And so it just felt too special just to stop doing. And so that's the thing. It's like I decided last year I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm like, I was at episode like 280 or something, and I was like, I'm just going to do one show a week until I finish this thing at 300. Just like let's do it
There you
there.
go.
Let's just kind of go out with a bang and all that. And so and so that's essentially what I did. I think the last couple of episodes really I did almost like a British television show where I did, or like the last season of Game of Thrones, where it's like, I would just, or something, I don't know, go a while, like release one and then go for a long while and then drop another one and all that. But I don't know. It ended, and now that it's over, I have not I have not felt the need, the desire to go back and do another show. I just haven't. What I have been doing, and is when I feel like it, I will record an episode and I'll just put it onto my Midnight Citizen feed. And it's not called like the Midnight Citizen. It's like just talking. Usually like I think my last episode was like, I don't know. I think it was like Christmas. I think on Christmas night or whatever. I had watched Eyes Wide Shut, because like it's a Christmas it's a Christmas movie directed by Stanley Kubrick, which I think is hilarious. And I think
movie.
yeah. So and I watched Eyes Wide Shut, and I just like sat outside on Christmas night and was just talking about that movie. And I also did a show where it's like I went and saw The French Connection at a theater here in Birmingham. They were showing it, and I saw The French Connection. And after that movie was over, I got out and I was downtown and just kind of walking around the streets at night in November, just talking about the movie. And I went to a bar and had a drink, and it ended up being like a very film noir, almost kind of night, kind of like the set that you're sitting on right now. So, and that's the thing I like. And it's like, if I do a new show, and I don't want to get ahead of myself or anything like that, but if I do a new show, that's kind of what I want it to be like. I want it to just be like an improvisational thing where I don't feel forced to do it. It's just something that I do in the moment if it feels good, kind of like, I don't know, just sort of like having a permanent honeymoon period with podcasting, I guess you could say. So,
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
don't
way
want
to
to.
talk about it.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of my relationship with podcasting at the moment. So
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfectly
yeah,
fine, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I think so. I think it's
you know,
good.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's just that's the way it goes. At least you had a goal and you accomplished your goal,
hmm
and you still
and
are,
I
in a
didn't
way.
pod fade. So yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was your goal.
yeah,
So
hmm
you did it.
yeah,
So, what else is happening? Anything,
yeah,
like we've talked about AI, we've talked about all kinds of
yeah,
stuff. I was just
yeah.
going to come on and I was going to say, well, what's happening in your world that is
Yeah.
interesting these days?
Yeah, the major thing is like, so I was, teaching for a really long time. When I started doing the podcast, I was in school getting my certification in teaching. And so over the years, it's like listening to the show is like a whole journey of mine of ultimately deciding not to teach anymore. Like it's like a 15-year long story, because in 2010, when I started doing the show, like, I was really excited about getting my certification to be a teacher. I had just gotten into grad school and I was like really excited about it, and then as you go through the years, I get out of school and, I get my first job in education working for a nonprofit doing education programming for like a park here in Birmingham. And then I do those shows, and I do a lot of shows where I'm outside and I'm, walking around the woods and all that. And that's like around 2012 to 2015. And then I get a job at an actual school, and I'm teaching high school for about 5 years. And I do some shows right a little bit into 2017, and then I just stop for 3 years, because it's the thing is like teaching just became like it's a full-time job, it's literally a full-time job, like what they say, 8 to 5, but it's also like you're working on weekends and I always like to record the show on weekends, so for 2017 to 2020, I don't do any shows. And then when COVID happens, I'm here in this room all the time, and I'm actually doing I'm teaching students online, and I'm here in front of the computer, and all of their cameras are off, so it's just a completely black screen and nobody's listening to me. So I'm like, man, this makes me really miss podcasting, just talking and nobody's listening. So that's great. So I got out my microphone and mixer and everything and just started doing the show again. It was like a really wonderful period and all that. And so and that lasts, as I said, until last year. And I left teaching high school and started teaching college, and did a bunch of podcasts all the way through teaching college. And then last year just decided that I like teaching, but it's not paying any bills at all. And so I made the decision, like, here it is, like I gotta actually kind of get a job that takes what I've been doing for all these years, does something that uses teaching, I don't know, with like whatever it is, communications, technology, like all the stuff with podcasting that I've learned throughout the years. I've got all these skills, that I can probably, turn into something. So I decided to look for, a job essentially that was not anywhere near a classroom, because there's just, and I hate to say it, it's like there's just no money there,
Right.
And searching for a job just ended up being like a full-time job. And I'm also like, and I'm also at the same time sort of like, if I am looking for a button-down corporate job, I've probably got to stop, putting stuff out there on the internet for a time being. And just I started to get like a little bit paranoid about that. Not so much paranoid, like, my show has like always been a totally safe for work show, I feel. But I also was just thinking at the same time, it's like, I'm putting in resumes and people are going to be like Googling me and all that, and why
happens these days.
yeah. So so it's just kind of one of those things where I just thought I shouldn't do that, and just to focus on finding a job, just to focus on that, finding a job while at the same time trying to like pay the bills and everything. It was just too much to do a podcast at the end of the day,
Yeah.
And so the answer to the really, really short answer to your question is I got a job. Yeah, I got a job, a couple months ago. And I just finished up my 4th week working there. And it's a really, it's one of these jobs where it's like, it kind of sounds tragic the way I say it, where it's like, oh, you had to put up your childish toys and get a grown up job and
be adult now.
Yeah.
God,
but but it's not like that at all. It really isn't. I managed to find a job that, and I hope that this ages well. But because I'm still in those early days, but I managed to find a job that seems to be like a really good fit for me. It's a job with a software company here in Birmingham, and the and what I'm doing implementation. So it's a job where I'm actually going to be like traveling quite a bit and
Mhm.
traveling all over the country, helping clients, learn the software that we're selling and teaching them how to use it.
Oh, cool.
And it's a really solid job. It's a job that doesn't seem to have a lot of turnover. A lot of the people that I'm working with have been there 10, 20 years. So it's like once people get into this job, they stay in it for a while, and it's it's definitely got giving me some benefits that I'm just not used to seeing in education.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fantastic, and ultimately, like what I really do like about it is that it is going to allow me to you know do a really cool, I think, show of some kind. Just travel, take the recorder with me,
Mhm.
record from some cool places. I just got my first travel assignment today, actually. It's like
Wow.
today was a good day. They gave me they set me up at like a cubicle for the first few weeks, right
You're
outside
going
the
to
boss's
Baltimore.
office.
Oh, no.
They just wanted to make sure that they gave me a cubicle. They just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to like fall asleep and and all that. But
Really?
today,
That was a big worry? Is
yeah,
he
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
nod off during the day? He
Well,
is the
when you
midnight citizen, you know.
exactly
Yeah.
when you start a corporate job, I mean, the rules are completely different. I mean, the rules are just like, we hired this guy and we need to make sure he's going to stick around for a while. So it's like you know they hire you and then HR kind of ghosts you for a few days. And then when you don't quit by the end of the first week, then they give you access to all of their, proprietary stuff. And they
Wow.
send you an email about signing up for health insurance and all that. And then slowly but surely, you begin to materialize at the company, and you get like a name badge with your face on it. You get you get like they give you a corporate credit card eventually.
Mhm.
They start to like once you kind of like earn a little bit of trust. Like today was a big day because they gave me my first travel assignment. So they're essentially saying it's like, look, you've proven so far that we believe we can pay to send you on a trip to learn from another trainer,
Mhm.
um, without having to, you know, without being sure that we're going to waste this money on you because you're going to quit when you come back. We're pretty sure you're going to
Right.
stay around.
Oh
And they
my
gave me an
goodness.
office. They say you've proven that you can come into work and work
You'll
8 hour
show
days
up,
consistently and
so
not
you're
fall
gonna
asleep.
yeah.
So it's this weird thing where it's like you're in a job ostensibly for the long haul. They want to make sure that you can scale. So just
Right,
like anything
yeah.
else. So so it's a slow burn into it, but it's really good, and I really I, I like the people that I'm working with. They're all like really cool. It's like every job I've had for years. I've always worked with people who are much younger than me, which is interesting. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously people like who are older than me also, but like much older, or people who are
Mhm.
much younger. It's like I'm at this weird age, and meanwhile all my friends are kind of older than me, and so everybody that I'm working with, they're like actually older than me or the same age, which
Ooh.
is interesting. And I'm not used to being at work and hearing people talk about their favorite bands. And when they say their favorite bands, they are talking about things like Red Hot Chili Peppers and and just all these bands that I grew up with,
Mhm.
listening to, like that are of my elder millennial or Gen X generation, whatever you want to call it. So it feels pretty cool. I mean, it's like I like that. That's kind of cool. But
Can
you know
I ask, are you going to
yeah.
have you're gonna be doing interstate travel, or are you gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
more regional travel?
That's going to be interstate. I'll tell you the first place that I'm going is well, I'm flying into hang on just a second. Can I? God dang it! Hang on, my wife's calling me. I'm
That's
so
alright.
sorry about this. She's out right now, so
No
hey, you
problem.
okay? So sorry. I know you're in the middle of the yeah, thing. Hang on just a second. Okay.
We get to watch the Midnight Citizen taking a phone call. Here, we'll have a little musical interlude here while Mike takes his phone call. How's that? What shall we listen to? I've got a few things here. Let's see. Do, 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 do.
Okay.
There you go.
So yeah, so for your viewer, and I know I used to do live podcasts all the time. I know you're live right now.
Well, nobody's watching, so it doesn't matter, but it's fine.
Yeah, still. Sorry about that. So it's
right.
for the context, you know, it's 9:30 here Central Standard Time on a Friday night. When your wife calls you at that time,
You gotta answer it.
you need to take it. And it was an emergency. She was out and she just needed to know that something was here before she came all the way back over here to get it. So
Sure. No, that's fine.
I
Don't
appreciate
worry
it.
about it, honestly. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Okay. You can edit that out later on for
whatever.
purposes
That's fine. Yeah.
of a rerun. Okay. Cool.
I put a little music in there. You probably, unfortunately, were listening to it. Well, I forgot about that part.
No, I did. I had my wife was on my phone and you were in my head and
Sorry.
Singing on Jeopardy music.
It wasn't too annoying.
It's okay. I appreciate it. So, do you feel this is going well so far? Or should I? I know I'm rambling a lot.
I was going to, you know, I'm terrible like that. But you said you're going to have to travel. Now, I've talked for about time, but I have had to travel in my profession for many years. And early on when I was younger, I traveled way more than I do now, thank goodness. And so, yeah, I was going to talk to you about that because, and I don't want to, it's going to sound cautionary in a little ways, but it's not necessarily bad, right? So the deal is though, is traveling is very tough on you physically sometimes because, you know, it's not the same as commuting, right? And so you have to you prepare yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. It's fun because you get to go places that you wouldn't normally get to go. And if you're lucky, you get to see things that you wouldn't normally get to see. But then there's the aspect of it to where, okay, I have to get up super early one day to catch a flight. I have to get, you know, back really late one time and then try to get home. And then, you know, it becomes one of these things to where, and then, you know, even though you got back late the next day, oh, I got to go back in for the meeting.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And so it can be a bit of a grind. And so I just wanted to make mention of that because I think sometimes people don't prepare for how
Mm-hmm.
mentally and physically draining. Just you don't even do anything. You just go and sit, and then you go and
Yeah.
sit someplace else. But
Right.
that nature of travel is, especially nowadays with all of the security and everything, is just draining. And so
Mm-hmm.
anything you can do is you're doing this to make your life easier. So I know it's some people are, we get into the politics of it and whatnot, but get your pre-board, right? Get your
Mm-hmm.
pre-check stuff done because it's going to make your life easier.
Yeah.
And um and get yourself a decent carry-on suitcase.
So I was waiting until this week to get my corporate credit card, and the first thing that I'm allowed to put on there is the TSA
Yeah.
pre-check. So I'm way ahead of
Me
you on
too.
that. I'm getting that
Yeah,
this weekend.
because it'll save you a
That's
lot of aggravation.
yeah.
But
So
but I don't like it, but it's like you get forced into
yeah,
doing these things.
yeah. So here's what I'll say to everything you just said. I totally get what you're saying, and anybody I've talked to who has had to travel for a living has told me the same thing. It is very taxing. My first job out of college, 20 years ago, was traveling. I had to travel a lot for that job, and I had to
Oh,
drive too. Yeah, I had to drive, all over the country for that
right.
job, and I was young, and that was hard, and I did not last a year in that job because uh, not so much the travel. The travel was fine. I could deal with that. It was just the company itself. The company actually folded less than a year after I left it, so they
Oh,
were
okay.
just in really bad conditions. That the company that I got signed on for. I mean, I should
Mhm.
have figured out because they hired like a 24-year-old me who didn't know anything at all. Who only had video stores on his resume.
Mhm.
um and it's like they it's I don't know, it's like I should have figured that out. They should, I was not qualified to do what they to do
What they
that.
wanted
So
you but
I
yeah.
don't know why they hired me to do that job, but it was good experience at least, and I got that figured out. So I think the thing about it is though, is that I'm in my, I guess for all intents and purposes, I'm approaching my mid 40s. And there are things that you just know about yourself. I think when you get to that point in life and you've had enough jobs, you've had enough experience, um, like the one thing that I know about myself is like I get cabin fever pretty easily
Mhm.
in terms of just being in a job. I like the idea of being able to like move for my job quite a bit, which is why when I was teaching high school, even though I didn't have to really, because my salary was not great when I was teaching high school, but it was enough to live on,
Mhm.
without having to take on another job. But nevertheless, I started, delivering food and driving Uber
Mhm.
at nights, because I couldn't just go to school all day long and be home all night. I had to have some kind of like in between thing where I was driving around. I was like going to new parts of town, my own city and country that I had never been to before, and all that. It's just something that the whole reason I think that I was drawn to go back to get my master's in English literature, and why I've read my entire life is because I love just experiencing the world. And sometimes like when I've been especially broke, the one thing that's like really given me a lot of relief is to read American literature, and and kind of just indulge in like the poetry of like big open boring places, and that's always been just like my desire is to have a job where I get to see and be a part of these, just big, beautiful, boring places. And my first travel assignment is right there in uh, you know I guess
I'm gonna
south
go Kansas,
southwestern Minnesota. So
Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
be I'm going to be actually flying into Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, how
And,
you there? Hey, going to Fargo
yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
know. And I'm gonna I'm gonna be staying there, and I think like that's I'm gonna be staying there, and then driving about right over the border to this little tiny little town, which there's a real big synchronicity with this little town because that I'm going to be in. When I found out today I was going there, I nearly couldn't believe it. It was this town that years ago, about 15 years ago, around the time that I started doing my podcast on YouTube, I found this guy was making YouTube videos who was the station manager of an actual unlicensed, pirate radio station
Oh, wow. Cool.
outside of Fargo, North Dakota, and he was making all these videos of he had set up a radio station there in his basement, and he had a little dipole antenna on top of its roof,
Hmm.
and he was broadcasting the signal there, and storms, blizzards would come through, and it would blow it down. He would have to go up there and fix it himself, and he was doing the whole thing himself, and he had this whole recording studio in his basement, and all these local bands would come down there, and he would record them and put them on the radio and all that. And the YouTube series that he was filming followed him through having this little pirate radio station down there in his basement to getting shut down, reported to the FCC and shut down, and then going through the proper channels to actually license the radio station.
Oh,
And
okay.
and then it became like this. It became basically the only radio station in this tiny town outside of Fargo.
Hmm.
And this guy was pretty much, along with a few other influences, hugely instrumental in me doing my podcast many years ago.
Hmm.
Just watching this guy on his journey to create community radio, which is what I always kind of wanted my podcast to sort of have the feel of, just this late night community radio show.
Hmm.
And so yeah, the town that I'm going to in a couple weeks is where the radio station is.
Oh, wow.
I literally I could not
That's
believe
hilarious.
that synchronicity. I was looking
You're
up
gonna
the
go
little
by and say
town.
hey?
Yeah, I was looking up the little town on Wikipedia, and it's a very tiny Wikipedia entry, but it's part of the history of this tiny little town in Minnesota. Is the radio station? It's on the Wikipedia page right there, and the guy is there by name, and I was looking him up, and you just asked me, are you going to go by and visit the station? And I can't. He died last year,
Oh,
and
no.
I
That's
know
horrible.
I hate it because for years and years I would actually listen to the because he would stream online when the FCC shut him down. He started streaming
Right.
before he actually licensed an antenna, and opened it up as a licensed station. And I would listen to it, and just at night while I was doing work and everything, and he would play like lo-fi, just I don't know, like electronic soundscape type music, just like kind of like public library kind of music.
Hmm.
And I would just listen to it for years, and then I just fell out of touch with it and almost completely forgot about it. But yeah, no, he died last year, and really, unfortunately, the station went with him. He was the only
Sure.
one who was keeping the thing in operation. All of his people that were running it were volunteers, and
Hmm.
um, because I'm assuming that there's just no millionaires living of living in that part of the living in that part of rural Minnesota. There's probably nobody stepping in with a bunch of money to save it in the age of streaming. So
Right. Yeah,
it's
sure.
another one bites the dust.
Well, that's
Um,
interesting though, because
yeah.
you mentioned the community radio, and you did kind of a community drive-in at
Hmm.
one point too. And so, what do
Hmm.
you think it is that is the for you at least? What is the reasoning? Why do you think you gravitate towards these kind of
Yeah.
things? Because, and I'm just saying this because it's factual, but radio and drive-ins are not a thing of they were dying in your time. They're not the thing that were popular in your time.
I don't know. I mean, it's
I mean, do you
yeah,
have fond
y-
memories and
yeah, no. So, it's uh, I think I recently heard that there's a term for people like me, like people who were born in a very specific time
Mhm.
in like 1978 and about 1985. And so this is like me and my big sister and then my little sister. I'm right there in the middle. So I was
Mhm.
born in 1982, and I think I'd heard this term before, but it just kind of hit home with me recently, and it's called zennials. We're called
Oh,
zennials.
right. Yeah, I've heard this
Uh,
from you.
yeah, yeah. Like I've heard elder millennial also. And I think I was really thinking about this the other night. That I think part of the distinction of being a zennial or whatever, or an elder
Mhm.
millennial, is having this like inescapable feeling that like everything great happened before you were born. And like with
That's
Gen
funny.
X, and I know that's like a very typical thing that anybody can say, but I think
Right,
with
yeah.
like Gen X, like I think people like you guys, because you're Gen X, and
Right, I'm Gen X.
um,
I'm basically
yeah,
Frank and I are very, very similar.
yeah, y'all have this like wonderful, you know, I don't know, ownership over a lot of like the last great gasp of everything.
Right. Well, yeah,
uh,
of all of the analog, that's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the analog and just this explosion in the 1980s, especially of
Oh, yeah.
independent production, uh,
Mhm.
where just suddenly like everything began to become a lot more democratized, in terms of like what you can make and what you can sell. And
Mhm.
so the thing about it is like by the time I was coming around and watching MTV, everything was sponsored, by, I mean, it's always been sponsored, but like they weren't trying to hide it,
Right.
and you just have this feeling that like by the time I kind of came around, it's like, yeah, I remember video stores. Of course I remember video stores all the time, right? But I only
Mhm.
walked into maybe one or two mom and pop video stores in my life in the late 80s, and I barely remember that. Everything, my memory of video stores was the exact reason why I'm glad video stores are gone now, because they were for mostly like just not a very pleasant experience. It's like you'd
Mhm.
go in there and you could only stand to be in the video store for like 15 minutes before the blockbuster loop tape of all the latest movies that were coming out of like just the box office. They were just, it would just drive you crazy to just be in those video stores for longer than
Yeah.
15. So I don't have like this great nostalgia for like Blockbuster, even though I did work there.
Oh, you worked at
That may
Blockbuster? Good
Yeah, that may
job.
be one of the reasons. Yeah. But I guess like my whole thing, to answer your question in like a really short way, is that I was there is like a huge angst that I feel maybe really specific to people of my age. Maybe I'm wrong, but I definitely see it in other friends that are around my same age, and I definitely see it in my sisters, of this desire to like kind of bring community back, because that's what died. That's
Yeah.
like the ultimate tragedy of the 2000s.
Well,
Is
yeah, well, some
Yeah,
people would say it shifted online, but
yeah. I mean, just
I don't
this.
think that that's totally true.
Okay,
I
okay.
would say it's not totally
Yeah,
true because
yeah. I mean,
it's
I don't
different
think it's
because
totally true either, but I think
yeah.
it's overwhelmingly. I definitely think that like we now live in a world where it's like we totally have community, but every time we do, it almost feels like it's novel. Like we have to
Mhm.
acknowledge that it's community.
Well, and you can be part of a community that you never interact with,
Yeah, yeah,
which
or
in meat world or whatever you want to call it, real world, you get forced to interact because you're standing there and people can see you and they can
yeah,
talk to you and so then you have to react, and online you can just lurk
Yeah.
and you don't have to interact. And so
Hmm.
you may say it's a community, but if you're not participating, then it's not really a community. So
Yeah.
it's something else. It's a whole other beast.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I and I mean that's where, at least in my view, that's where. But it's safer too in a weird way, because you don't have to, right? So you can just watch it all happen. It's almost like television in the
Hmm.
sense where you can just watch it go by, and then you don't have to do anything to it. It just happens.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that I think though with the internet though you can only do that for so long. Like you will eventually feel compelled to interact with that community for better or
you
worse.
think? Oh, I
Yeah,
don't think so. I think
yeah. I mean,
so.
I don't think I don't know if I think I I don't I'm in conversations like these. I hazard. I don't want to like get too literal about what you're saying, but like I think it's like I am very much a non-participant on the internet these days. You know, not
Mhm.
just not, but podcasting for years and years was my way of compromising with the internet because and what had become of it because of Facebook, mostly at the time, is that I just and Twitter also is like I think that if you kind of create this like space online where people can only come on and react to what other people have said or like write everything down in like 141 characters or less or whatever, you're going
Right.
to create like an incredibly hollow experience. And
Mhm.
so podcasting was my way of like essentially posting on the internet, but you know being a like posting on social media, but giving people the opportunity to actually give understand all the context.
Mhm.
Like actually giving them an opportunity to understand my tone when I say things and not just like try to infer what my tone is from reading what I wrote
Mhm.
on Facebook or whatever. I was incredibly frustrated on, just in the fact that that's what interacting online had become. And so eventually I felt compelled to become a part of the community by podcasting, by actually sort of doing that. It was one of those
Mhm.
things where, for me anyway, it's like I could only stand back as like kind of a non participant for so long before I have to sort of throw my hat into the ring. But it has to be on my terms. So,
That's interesting. I never
yeah,
would have thought
yeah,
of like that, to be honest with
yeah,
you. I
yeah.
think of this as something a little bit different.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from on that. But
yeah,
it is interesting. And then the other aspect of things that we were touching upon there, like the drive-in movie was kind of its own experience.
yeah.
Did you guys go to the drive-in movie when you were kids with your parents or anything? Or
No. I mean, I honestly
really?
like there were drive-ins. Because I lived for the first 10 years of my life in the country in Alabama, so there were definitely drive-ins. We just never went, and
Yeah.
I don't know why that was. I maybe it was because my parents had grown up at the drive-in and they knew what happened at those drive-ins, and you know they didn't want me to be any part of it. That wasn't like a family environment for them. But you also have to, I think, remember though, it's like when I was a kid, if the drive-ins were still around, I mean there were far fewer of them in the 1980s, even in rural Alabama, than there were in the 70s. They had essentially become like dirty movie shows, at
Oh,
that point.
really? Down there were dirty movie shows? Really?
No, I mean, but I mean that was like what a lot of the rural drive-ins in the South essentially like boiled down to, is that they weren't showing movies for kids and families and all that. It's
Really?
like, no,
Oh.
I mean, not that I've been able to figure out. I've been able to
Well,
find out. I think like,
B
yeah,
movies, sure, yeah. Mhm.
yeah. I think like uh I think uh in recent years, with the uh, kind of soft drive-in revival, like especially during COVID, there was a huge spike in drive-in
Right.
membership, attendance.
Yeah.
Drive-in movies have become had become for a very long time. Like family, like you would go there and they would show Pixar movies and
Right.
only PG or G-rated movies and things like that. And within the last years since COVID, if your town has a drive-in, it is possible to go there and see like all the movies that are playing at the multiplex, regardless of what they're rated or whatever.
Right.
Um, but no, I mean, just growing up, I never went to the drive-in, and I think like the whole reason I won't say that I had like any kind of nostalgia for it, because nostalgia implies something that you're missing something that you don't have anymore, and I never had drive-ins.
Right.
I I had it simply because it was like this sort of just a American iconography that was built into my
Wow.
head again
Okay.
through like reading literature, but also just growing up and watching like Joe Bob Briggs host
Monster
Monster
Vision.
Vision on
Mhm.
TNT, and it was really Joe Bob Briggs that kind of was he was a drive-in movie critic. He was the only film critic writing for a major publications, and then ultimately hosting his own shows on cable, that
Mhm.
was really keeping the drive-in like kind of culture alive, sort of like really selling it through his character that he created.
Right.
Uh, you know, uh, like if you don't know, if your audience doesn't know, John Bloom, who was this writer. He was a journalist for the Dallas Times Herald, and created a character named Joe Bob Briggs, who was like this just shit kicking, trailer park redneck, uh, you know, who lived in Grapevine, Texas. And he would, write this comedy column that was just a review of all the drive-in movies that were coming into town, because he realized that there was something wrong with American culture. When you've got all the film critics in America are paying attention to the Oscars, and nobody's paying attention to the movies that people actually,
Right.
go and see at the drive-in, not because they want to see them, but because they want to get out of the trailer, they want to get out of the house, and they don't have like, $4 to go to the movies, so they go to the drive-in, and
Right.
it's like this great, communal event where people get together, and you can bring in beer and everything, and you sit in the flatbed of your truck and all that, and just
Right.
watch,
Yeah.
a double bill, and it's a great Friday night. And that's one of those things that it's like I don't even know if that would be something that I would be up for, because certain parts of the country, you go to the drive-in where there's a bunch of rednecks, and trucks and coolers of beer. It's not really the safest place to be sometimes, um, but I
Oh, I
do,
guess,
though. I
yeah,
mean,
maybe not.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
I've never
what
experienced that, but I've been, so and not
yeah,
that long ago,
yeah,
so
yeah. But what was happening around the time that I kind of had this idea of creating like an actual drive-in myself is Alabama was kind of having a bit of a drive-in revival by itself.
mhm.
There were these people who owned like all this, farmland, and at Halloween time they had a haunted house, and they were always trying to look for ways of making money. So they got an actual old 35 millimeter film project a drive-in film projector,
Mhm.
and they just set it up in a outhouse essentially, behind their barn, and they just charged people $5 to come, and it was like a double feature. And it was that just absolutely perfect drive-in experience of, and I went out there one night, and I was like, this is exactly what it's supposed to be about, and it was a great experience. And around that same time, there was this sort of growing internet movements around the time that Kickstarter was just starting, actually. And people were online like asking for funding to start up these mobile drive-ins, where you
Mhm.
would you would get a projector, and you would hook that projector up to like like a marine battery or just your car battery. And you just be in a parking lot somewhere, just a deserted parking lot, and you would show the movie on just a blank wall, and people would
Right,
just
yeah.
park, and and stop. And I was like, that's the most amazing thing ever. I don't know why people need to do a Kickstarter for this, because you're talking like, I mean, as long as you have a projector, you're, and it's $80 for the battery. So,
Right,
just
right.
whatever. I mean, and so it was like the most low tech thing ever.
Yeah.
So I delivered newspapers to earn money to get the projector, because I didn't have a projector. And then and other than that, I saw a parking lot. I called up the management company, and they made me pay like something like $200 or whatever to insure the parking lot for like a weekend. Uh,
Right.
and I gave them the check, and they paid the insurance company. They probably like, just pocketed, but
Right. They already
yeah.
had insurance.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were mobbed up. But
Yeah.
but whatever. It's like, if $200, sure, here it is. And yeah, we just showed a couple of movies, and it was a lot of fun. It was not. Um, I learned that it's not always necessarily very safe to set up a projector in a parking lot in the middle of a you know violent southern city like Birmingham. That's not. We got by okay without any incidents, but there were a couple times where, like, you get a bunch of you know people together in a parking lot, and there's bound to be, what can I say? There's bound to be like people who are going to find you, who are going to ask you, beg you for money, and these
Oh
beggars and
yeah.
all that stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, we were kind of nervous, and but for the most part, we were just watching the movie. It was like, okay. It was like we showed. I think that weekend we showed like The Sadist, which was that movie about Charles Starkweather,
Mhm.
the teenage juvenile delinquent who shot his girlfriend's dad, and then they took off across the country and all that.
Right.
Um, and Yeah, it was like an old black and white drive-in movie that we didn't have to pay for, um, pay to
Public
show.
domain. Yeah.
Yeah, public domain movie, and so we showed that. And yeah, I mean, it was one of these experiences where even though I hadn't had any of these like memories of the drive-in to draw on to grow up, it was kind of something that was like invented in the spirit of what I felt like it was supposed to be, which you know but yeah, ultimately not sustainable though. I did not, after that first weekend, after planning it so much, like we did one more weekend, and it is ultimately something that we just decided not to do anymore. Me and my girlfriend at the time, and now wife, Jessica. It was
Yeah.
just a little bit too, it was mainly just the crime element. We were just afraid that we were going to get like, mugged, and we were going to like lure all these people out to like enjoy a movie, and they
Mm.
were all just going to end up getting robbed and all that. So, and I didn't want to take that responsibility, especially since like I was most likely writing an insurance check to nowhere. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, I
you
mean, but
know,
I mean,
so
at least you did it though. You accomplished again. You accomplished the
mhm.
goal. That's the
Yeah,
idea. So
yeah,
we I did the kind of the what you would call it. You did the public version, and
hmm,
I certainly did the private version with my
hmm,
kids, where we would hang a sheet up outside, and
yeah,
I had access to lots of projectors, so I bring one home, and we would do movie nights for the kids and
yeah,
their friends who were spending the night or whatever, and we go outside and they get to watch the movie under the stars,
yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
situation, you know. And they
yeah.
loved it. I mean, because the other good thing is they could spill everything; it didn't matter, and they did.
Yeah,
So
of course you can. Yeah, and you can spill
yeah,
things at the drive-in too. They don't know. But
yeah. No, that's what I mean.
yeah,
If I
yeah,
would have done this inside, then
yeah,
it'd just be all over the house. So
yeah. It's not good. Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah. No, I
there
mean,
is a there
yeah,
is
yeah,
it's akin weird, and I think well, this is an allegory, I suppose, right? So it's the whole, sitting by the fire and seeing the images flicker on the cave wall. I mean, it goes all
yeah,
the way back to that, and that's where the drive-in kind of it
Yeah.
becomes very primal in the sense that you're kind of reliving that kind of aspect of things where you're just like people used to watch the reflections from the fire, the shadows from the fire, and
Yeah.
you're outside, right? It's all you've got nature. You hear the crickets and the
Yeah.
cicadas, and you know,
I know.
it's an experience. It's not as sanitized
Yeah.
as being inside.
I think it says something that even the cave people, when they didn't have anything else to do, uh, they were totally fine with just like we do, just sitting and just watching their own reflections
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
on the TV, or in their case, the cave wall. Yeah.
right. I think that's where I think some of that comes from is just this weird
Yeah.
aspect of it, and the
Yeah.
fact that you are in nature, you know, only adds to the whole situation there, and makes it that
Hmm.
much more fun. Now, you know, we had you know, everybody was plied with candy and popcorn and everything, and so that whole aspect of things is a whole nother part of it. But
Yeah.
it's really just interesting that that's still the attraction of it, and I'm surprised that more people. I mean, I haven't. Well, I don't drive around. I don't drive around town late on Friday and Saturday nights
Yeah.
as much as I used to, I suppose. But you don't see a lot of that. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more because
Hmm.
it is kind of like a weird. It's a weird experience
Yeah.
to do that, and now you can. I mean, anybody can. You're right at this point, even especially now, it's not anything that's way out of the norm. So you
Yeah.
know.
No, I think it's wild to me because, like, the thing that we, and I know it's like such a cliche by now, but the thing that I think we all really did collectively discover during COVID is that we really do actually like being together. And just people in general just don't realize how social they are, and they sometimes really do wonder why they're so depressed, and it's just simply because they've been inside watching. Like last Sunday, I don't know why I was like inexplicably just depressed all day long, and I attributed it to the fact that I now have a Monday to Friday job, and the fun's over tomorrow. I have to go back to work. It wasn't that at all. It's because I came home on Saturday night and I sat down and I had like I was watching this HBO show, that show The Pit,
Oh
and
yeah.
with Noah Wiley, and I was like, oh, it's on HBO and I'm on episode 8. I've probably got like 2 episodes to go, and that's
Mhm.
that's the way HBO shows work. And the freaking show just after episode 10 kept on going, and it kept on going, and it kept on going,
Mhm.
and it was like 15 episodes, and I ended up watching the rest of the series that night because it wasn't like I was like really into it, but it was like I just felt like I had to finish.
You gotta collect them
And
all,
you
kids.
cannot do something, you can't binge watch for that period of time because it makes you antisocial and it makes you depressed, and it really does suck oxygen out of your brain, that you should be using for valuable purposes like being around people, and not just being around people and watching something, but being around people and actually having a conversation about perhaps what you're watching, and um, or something like that. It's just I can't explain it. It's something that you really you it's people just wonder why they get so depressed sometimes. It's because like everything is taking us away from being social now.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
and you can
yeah,
fall into just like anything, you can fall into the trap, right? So
yeah,
you
yeah,
have to be vigilant and know when you've had enough, right? Moderation in all things. The
right,
so you know, I mean, if anything, it's a form of addiction that's just not as debilitating uh physically,
yeah,
immediately physically.
right,
So yeah. Now I got a question for you. It spurred in my
mhm,
head to talk about this
yeah,
stuff. So were you ever have because of this zillennial kind of a situation, did you ever have uh the want for the arcade, right?
hmm,
So that's
yeah,
another thing that happened and was waning by the time you got to be old enough, but it was still there, right, into the 90s, but not like it
Yeah,
was
it
in the
wasn't.
80s.
It was a different thing. Like when you know you had it, where there was like a true arcade culture. There wasn't really an arcade culture. Um, I mean, I have a lot of. I went to a lot of birthday parties at Diamond Jim's Arcade in the Galleria. That was like every Saturday from like sixth to eighth grade. There was a birthday party there,
Mhm.
and I went to a lot of them. Um, I I was never an arcade person just because I always felt like I've never been a very competitive person, and I always felt like my friends like would just like destroy me at like NBA Jam or Mortal Kombat. Those are the
Right,
main those were the major, like those were like the Pac Mans, and the Galagas of my
right.
youth was NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat. Those were the two really big arcade games that people actually actively cared about having high scores on and having
Mhm.
their names on, like ass, and their
Right,
actual
yeah.
middle initials. That was, I think, the main distinction between the early days of arcades before the video game, bust,
Mhm.
and and in the 1990s was there was much more of a competitive culture in the like late 70s and 80s. I think like an actual you know like schoolyard rumors of who got the high score on this and that, and
Right.
all these
Mhm.
things that I hear about. It was like when I feel like it was like when Mortal Kombat got ported to Sega,
Mhm.
and you no longer had to go to the arcade to play Mortal Kombat. That was the end of it. I
Right,
mean that,
yeah.
and that happened very, very quickly.
Very
It
quickly,
was
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, uh, it was like you went to the arcade, and then like in the middle of like when I was, I think maybe in the seventh grade or whatever, that's when we got Mortal Kombat, and then that was just pretty much it. It's like you kind of stopped having the need to go. It was, man, that was such a watershed. When you just Sega, Nintendo, and that was like such a predictor of things to come about how
Mhm.
like you no longer had to leave your house to do something that you wanted to do.
Oh, true, yeah. I mean, that
Yeah,
would be the
yeah,
precursor to all this with the internet. You're right. That is
yeah,
because I mean,
yeah.
that was, I got a Nintendo, um,
Mhm.
that I purchased. I was
Yeah,
working and purchased, not like a Christmas present or anything.
yeah.
And, what was it? Anyway, but
Hmm.
yeah, that was one of those things where you just sit there and play hours and hours of Mario Brothers
Yeah,
Zelda and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
interesting. But
yeah.
well,
No, my
you
sister.
can't let everybody get together, then they get
Yeah,
ideas, so
yeah. My little sister was literally just talking the other day about because me and her, we are old enough to remember getting our first Nintendo Entertainment System, the actual NES,
mhm,
in 1988. My older sister got it. My dad brought it home for her 10th birthday. So she got it, and we have very vivid memories of sitting down and playing Nintendo. But it was still like for years, it was still like there was nothing like going to the arcade. Like we loved going to the arcade and just being around people and getting tickets, and all that. And it was so much fun for years. But then, like I said, like in the seventh grade or whatever, when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, like your friends, you were now going over to like your friend's house, to play
mhm.
it rather than going to the mall, and all that. So I'll never like forget the day. Like I had when I was 10 years old, we moved to the house where my parents are still living in now. And it was a small neighborhood, and there was one other kid on that neighborhood with who was my age. I would go over to his house like every Saturday, and like we would play his Super Nintendo, and played Street Fighter 2 and all that. And he was just really like a cool guy, and I really liked him. But there was always also the sense that he had been there. He had been in that school system since he was in kindergarten, so he knew everybody. So there was always this sense that like when we went to school on Monday, he wouldn't talk to me because I was
Yeah.
the new kid, and I was like the new kid, and I had like I
You're
was
the
like Brian.
convenient friend.
yeah, and so it was so, but it was still so great. Like when we came home and all that, off the bus, it was like instantly to his house to play video games. And then the end of that year, his dad got a promotion, and they moved to the brand new subdivision with all the new future houses,
Mhm.
and all the other kids at school, whose dads had nice cushy jobs and everything. They all lived there too. So it was like now suddenly like I was like persona non grata with them, and the almost like the maybe I'm like, I don't know, changing history around to fit the story, but I'm pretty sure this is what happened. The second he moved to that new house, he got a Sega because it was a very understood, like in the early 90s, that the Sega was for the kids with money.
Right.
The Nintendo was for the kids with not so much money, but we still had, we were okay.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Got
but he
by.
got the Sega, and the Nintendo was undoubtedly the better system, but the Sega though, there was this like, there was this belief among the kids who had the Sega. They were absolutely cultish fanatics because of the graphics, because of the so-called blast processing, which
Right.
was just a marketing term. It didn't really mean anything, but it was blast processing. And Mortal Kombat 2, which had the blood in it. There was this
Right,
thing where
yeah.
it's like if you had the blood version of Mortal Kombat 2 on Sega, then you were cooler than the kids who had Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat that just had the green blood, that had the green
Right.
I can't remember what they called it. They called it's green spit, or I don't know. But anyway,
Slime, goo,
slime
probably.
maybe, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, it was green. And so I knew it was over between me and my friend Schaefer. That was his name, was Schaefer. It's like I knew it was over between me and my friend Schaefer when like he had a birthday party. It was like his 11th birthday party, and I was like an obligatory invite, and I went there and like just nobody talked to me the whole time, and then at the end of, at the end of the birthday party, Schaefer, everybody gave him presents, and then Schaefer came up to me at the end of the birthday party and gave me his copy of Super Nintendo, of Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo. He's like, "Listen, man, I'm not going to be needing this anymore. You can have it."
Oh, man, the
you know,
hand-me-down.
I know. He gave me his green version of Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo, and just it really was, it felt like it was like Christmas and at the orphanage, and I got the old sock or something,
Christmas at the orphanage.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that
That's
story was
funny.
entertaining at all, but it's like it's a
Yeah, it's
long
funny.
rambling mess or whatever, I don't know. So
Well,
yeah, but
it's been about an hour, Mike,
yeah.
so, that's usually when we wrap up here.
Hmm.
Did you wanna talk about anything coming up or just, we've already hit all the high points for that?
I don't know. I could promo future projects, but it's honestly like I don't know if I have been entertaining enough to plug any future projects if you guys are looking into them. So
No, what do
I'll
you
just
mean? It doesn't matter.
but I will be doing some traveling coming up here, and you know I've just been waiting for things to stabilize a little bit in my life to kind of just get things to like this point where I can feel good to you know uh to do shows again.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah, just
have a new project.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, when I start doing that again, I'll let you know, and I can come back on, and we can
Yeah,
actually
we'll talk
you know,
again. No,
talk about
I
everything
try to
else
catch
like
up
that.
with you every once in a while. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we've only, known of each other for, I don't know, got a
hmm,
decade and a half or something.
yeah. Never in person, but yeah, I mean, it's
Not yet.
eventually, yeah,
It's on my list to get so, it's on
yeah,
my list to get to Alabama. It's one of the states that I have
yeah,
not been to. So,
yeah,
one of the few. I was just, talking about this today with some, other friends,
yeah, hmm,
that there's only like, I have only not been someplace, you know, like to substantially stay there in,
yeah.
I think, 6 states, so at this point,
Wow,
Alabama
that's a
being
lot.
one of them. So I've been
Yeah,
to every other state except
yeah.
for
Well, that's
these He's 6, so I'm
There's
trying to get to
probably
all of them.
yeah, it may be for good reason. I don't know, but I've been to what
Well,
state is
nothing's
St. Louis?
taken
Send
me
me
there yet,
there.
that's the problem.
No, the way that I'm going to be traveling, I'll probably come through St. Louis
Oh, yeah, if you do, you gotta send me a note, and,
in the
I will
future.
buy
Yeah.
you lunch.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. If
Okay?
you talk
Well,
to
no, maybe
Chad,
you can expense my lunch, you're gonna have an account,
yeah,
I'm not gonna have an account.
if you talk to Chad Bowers, Chad will tell you that I love to have people buy me lunch. So,
Oh, well, I'll buy you lunch. Well, Chad and
usually
I
we go
went to
Dutch.
dinner, one
Yeah,
time. I picked Chad at the airport. Did you hear
yeah.
that? Did you hear that? Yeah.
I did.
I
I
picked
don't
him
know if I did hear that actually episode or not. When was that that you
Oh,
went?
no, it's been a long time ago now, but he was
Yeah,
here in St. Louis, and
yeah,
he sent me a note, and I'm like, well, he's like, I'm going to be coming in, whenever he was. And I said, I'll
yeah.
pick you up. And so I picked him up at the airport. And I did. Unfortunately, he had to ride in my terrible car at the time, but I
Did he
did prep
recognize
him.
you, or was he just looking for like a cartoon cat to pull
Yeah,
up in like a?
no, well, he didn't know it was me. He didn't know it was me till he got in the car, which is kind of scary in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Probably so.
but I
Yeah.
did give him my license plate number and
Okay,
my car, which
that's
I
good.
had a real beater car at the
Clarified
time
yourself.
because of the way things
Yeah,
happened. But
that's good.
and then I took him to
Chad,
his hotel,
sorry. Yeah,
and
yeah.
we
Chad
went to dinner.
actually Chad just got a job. Chad and I were talking back in December. That's the last time we saw each other, and we both didn't have jobs, but we were both on the lookout. And we were just commiserating. In this, we were going to meet each other for lunch, but we went to the seafood restaurant, and we got there and found out that we had both eaten already for some reason, even though we knew days in advance that we were going to eat lunch together. So we just got we just got coffee at a seafood restaurant.
That's
So
fine.
and just commiserated over not having jobs and all that, and
That's
so
funny.
recently I got one around the same time he got one. So
Oh,
that
good.
was good. That's the thing that I guess I can plug is that I recently had lunch with Chad Bowers in celebration of us both getting jobs at this restaurant that closed the next day. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not. We went there and like the next day it closed. It was part of this whole local Birmingham restaurant chain of restaurants that just their manager was like being sued from every which way by all these different meat vendors, and they just within
Oh
a
no.
week within a week that restaurant that we ate at shut down, and all of his other restaurants shut down too.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so that is now a time capsule. That was just 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
go and listen to that. It's called the Birmingham Restaurant Review, where me and Chad sit in a now defunct in a restaurant in Chelsea, Alabama. So
There you go. And that's on
yeah,
Unslug. That's on Unslug there.
hmm
So
it
you can go
is.
check
Yeah,
that out. But no,
yeah,
I mean it'll be so and then maybe sometime I'll try to get down and you and Chad and I can go review another closing restaurant. That would be
oh man, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. We should have a guest. We should have a guest. We should. I know. I'm really, really, really good at picking restaurants that close very quickly after I eat there. So I'll pick the place. So
we call it cursed meals. There you go.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good.
Cursed
Yeah,
meals.
definitely.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking some time to chat with me
Thank you.
tonight, and stay in touch, and all the best to you on
Absolutely.
your new endeavors, and and don't be a stranger. Swing by
Absolutely
or
not.
say hi
Yeah,
whenever you feel like it. All right.
definitely. Thanks, Bob.
All right. Hang on for just a
All right.
second here.
Okay. There's that music earlier.